All right, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Chris Baroni. I'm with the Lakeland Darrow Country Club and Homeowner Association. I'm the Chief Executive Officer and the Chairman of our litigation committee. And just wanted to give you guys kind of a brief update on a few things regarding our legal situation regarding our club, and maybe dispelling, hopefully, some rumors that you may be hearing out there. So, first and foremost, obviously, if you guys want to subscribe, you can get updates pretty regularly, or as regular as I post them, I guess. That should help you out as far as staying current with what what's going on at the club and the HOA. So, that being said, now wanted to move on to the apparently some misunderstanding regarding point of sale purchase at the club and what the reason is behind it. So the point of sale purchase system that we had, which was through Clover, was compromised by Shelby Wagner and Michael Allen, and those two at least, if not more, including Donnelly Bauer. And what I mean by that is, so we had been using the Clover system, I think, since the beginning of 2019, and it was great. It really helped out because the system we had before was horrible, and it was a system that should never have been chosen, and it was only done so because, once again, Hal had gotten involved in something he shouldn't have, and it was frustrating for the employees. It was frustrating for myself. It was frustrating for Mike Human, who was setting up a lot of the infrastructure for it. And once we got Clover in, things got much easier. Things got a lot easier to take into account. And the system itself became a lot more efficient and was certainly relieving, my employees of a lot of extra work and heartache. So that system, like I said, was compromised. And what I mean by that is someone had gone in, pretended to be President Human, and used his passcode and his phone number because they used his email address and his phone number as a way to circumvent that system, and changed our routing number that was set by us to go into Chase Bank. If those of you that remember when we took money out of the account to put into Chase, it was put it back to the Chase account. Then when they broke in, they were trying to put it back to what I believe was a Union Bank account, and I'm not even sure it was the same one. But if it was, either way, it doesn't matter. It wasn't the account the association had agreed to be putting it in, because obviously Lorden wasn't and isn't our management company. So when they did that, that required quite a bit of work on my part and that of Mike to do an investigation and find out, and we have evidence of them tampering and electronically and fraudulently pretending to be Mike in order to change the routing number. So we then had a couple options, and of those couple options, really none of them really worked in terms of how are we going to do a new point of sale system, because clearly what had happened was since then the account was like frozen and we couldn't continue to deposit there. They wouldn't let us open up another account. And then when we did at Chase, Shelby and Michael Allen and Harriet went and made fools of themselves at the bank, screaming and yelling at the teller. Their words, not mine. And same thing at Union. So then I obviously met with the board and we spoke about our options. And then came the idea, well, maybe we can find a business, that would do it. So I asked Paul, Mike, and Dave if, they wanted or knew of a place we could use. And the answer was no, not really. Then came the idea, well, I had started a company called Pivotal just in November, a couple months ago. And shocking to some, it was and still will be a property management, but it's not. The name Pivotal is to be able to pivot from one to another. That was the whole reason. It also, if you look at my logo, I don't know if anyone's seen it, but the logo that I created has a camera lens in the O for Pivotal, because it's also a company that's a company, Pivotal, that I'm the executive producer for, and we'll be making a movie, a really good one, I promise. No, I do have somebody who's a producer and writer already working on the script. That's pretty much finished, and now we're trying to head into the next phase of this. So that being said, that's what Pivotal is. That's why it was started in its original intention. And obviously, having been doing what I've been doing, which is Lorden's job for far too long, it just made sense that, hey, that would be something that I would delve into. Not anything I'd planned of, obviously, until November. And, makes sense. And I have, some opportunities that have already been presented with that. And I already own another property, all that good stuff. So it makes sense, tax purposes and all that. So that's the real reason behind Pivotal becoming the point of sale, is we didn't really have anywhere else to take the money. So I then, along with the board's permission, of course, began running sales to Pivotal for that reason, and that reason only at that time. So that was key, because it allowed, as it does, for the HOA to continue to get funds. And those funds belong to the homeowners association. So that's the case. Now, since then, people have created a lot of lies and bullshit and told you things that aren't true. The great news is that throughout all of the continual lies and things that have been going on for quite some time, they'll be dispensed with, if I can't respond to all the BS, but that was one that apparently I wasn't even aware of was even a big deal to anybody. So that's that. No good deed goes unpunished. And that's a prime example, as is the idea that I would give my wife and I'd give $47,000+ to our vendor, so that way we could buy equipment, which that's all documented too. And I actually got to use that information for my D&B report. So anyway, for the Pivotal side of it. But the good news in doing something like that for the HOA is there's a pretty transparent, I think, effort by those who support GPL and are obstructionists to make that out to be a bad thing. And that would be the same for Pivotal. So what I've kind of began to understand is that for a select few, it's okay to fleece our association for 25 years for millions and millions of dollars. But it's not okay for someone who lives in the association to actually give money to it, right? If, for any reason at all, they're also working for the association or live in the association, I should say, both. And that's really a terrible sickness. It's not what would be my first thought, but it is now clearly what's going on for some, not most, not even close to most. But that's exactly what it is. It's this resentment that somebody who lives within your neighborhood would be willing to do the things that I've done without there being this nasty ulterior motive that you guys have been told. Because, by the way, what is it? I mean, let me know. Certainly not because I'm making more money doing it. That's for sure. And it's certainly not because I get a pretty easy schedule and only have to work a few days a week, or only have to work 5 or 6 days a week. That certainly isn't it. Because everybody knows I'm working 7 days a week for the last, year plus. And putting in hours from, if I could do a 12-hour day, that would be a short one. So I only say that to give you perspective, because again, I don't even understand how it is that some people would come to the conclusions that they come to. I really don't. And it's okay that they come to them. I don't know how it gets there. I'm ignorant to that. I don't understand what the disappointment and all of that would be. And then the other little part, going back to giving to the association, time, money, and all that stuff, was one other thing that, really through a lot of time and discussions with people who I've reached out to, many of whom are very independent minded or who've leaned in another direction opposite of mine. I've learned one other thing, and it's through discussion, which is there is a segment of people, and this is actually kind of hard to say because I don't even know where it comes from, and it's uncomfortable in the sense that I do believe it. It's just so ridiculous, and a part of it is maybe so obvious that I was naive not to even see it, which is there are a group of people within the association who, because they pay 163 like I do and everybody else, feel because that they're paying me, right? That they're paying me, that's not a good thing. Even if it was $10, right? That idea doesn't sit well with them. Because you're like giving money to your neighbor, like, that type of thing. And that is, again, really, really odd. I struggle to understand that because I'm thinking, well, outside of family, who would you rather give to? Hence the reason why I would give money for the club and I dedicate my time and leave a job and take far less money to do this. Because to me, that was just a normal, natural, like, tendency that I had as far as wanting to do something good for my family first and my neighbors, friends, and association second that live here. I think, at least for most of us, that's the natural progression. I mean, I can't go out and fix the world if I can't take care of my own home, right? I mean, and if I can take care of my own home, I mean, I can't go, fix, the problems in another state. My next step would be to help out my neighbors, right? I mean, that's just a normal progression of help. Now, that's not saying that you can't donate money to, wildlife and all that. I do that as well. And yeah, I have certain, like, Wounded Warriors and then, a couple others, foundations that I give to. Bottom line, though, is this. I never saw it that way. So it took me, better part of 2 years to finally start getting a grip on how cynical and sinister some people actually really are and the reasons behind it. But it's been eye-opening. It's actually been substantiated. And, part of me is, somewhat, I feel, although I know those that say, oh, you don't feel that way, a little bit ashamed of the fact that I didn't know that there were those types of people around me. And, whether or not that looks naive, sure, I think it is, actually. I don't care what anybody says it was, but the end result of it still is, it's not enough. And there's still too many great people in this association. And led me to a conversation I was having the other day with, I think it was somebody on the phone, but, and I know Steve was around, but, it was this, hey, why don't you just, take whatever, they're giving you on the other side. If they say that, you no longer work there, go ahead and, go get, attorney, you'll have a great lawsuit and you'll, make or get a lot of money. And I kept thinking to myself, it was weird to hear it from the person because they knew me a little better. But what also was weird was that what I would say next that kind of made sense, which is, if I was to do that, I then would first have to believe the BS, which I don't, even if it benefits me, financially at least. And then I would have to say that the love that I have and respect and admiration that I have for my own neighbors and my friends and that live here and my family doesn't supersede that of the sinister attempts by David Smith and the GPL supporters who are trying to cause nothing but grief. And that just simply isn't the case. The love and appreciation I have for most of you watching, definitely, and certainly my family, is what obviously keeps me going. And therein, I think, lies some of the issues with those who are so hateful and spiteful and post such mean and nasty things. That's on them. I'm not going to try to psychoanalyze that, but there was something that I was reading, and it was actually pretty good. It says, about talking about life and suffering, and I've never really subscribed that life is suffering. There are elements of it that are suffering, but I don't know. When I'm home and I'm with my kids and my wife, I don't feel any suffering. I mean, and truth is, I don't feel a lot of suffering going through what I'm going through. I certainly can see how others would perceive it that way. Some of it obviously isn't very nice, but I guess I know what real suffering is. And having had to suffer, from my perspective, and then having enough empathy to understand what real suffering is, I don't necessarily buy into it, but to each their own. Everyone's fighting their own battles. And if that's the case and we agree to that, then there is an amount of suffering that we're taking on. So that being said is, it said here, it says, before you're tempted to say anything about suffering and that life is meaningless, try to ask yourself this question: what is my reason for suffering? Because the suffering that you experience is a good indicator that something must change. Look for people who inspire you to become better and do it now. The instinct for admiration is part of the instinct for imitation. If you want a good life, find admiration through the chaos. And I know somebody out there is going to be like, wow, man, that's pretty powerful. And it is. And the person who utters those words is very inspiring to me, and is often a target, which is funny because nobody knows who that person that says that is. Not a single human being watching this right now knows who that is, because they said it about 6 hours ago. And I'm not going to tell you who it is. You can find out for yourself, or you can message me and find out. But that is what this person represents day in and day out. And so I want to answer kind of the question is, what is my reason for suffering? It's you and my family. That's it. I'm sorry if you want me to say money is the reason for my suffering. But you would look very foolish to say that, because only the exact opposite has transpired over the course of the last, year and a half, 2 years. So, and then it says, look for people who inspire me to become better. And there's only one person that I look to that is above and beyond the person who said this by a million light years, that inspires me. Actually, there's 4, but let's be real. I think for now, on the whole grand scheme of things, it's 1, and that's my wife. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. What she has had to take on over the course of the last 2 years is more than I bet any of you would be willing to, and I include myself in that. I don't think I'd be, I know I wouldn't be her in this situation if it was reversed. Hypocritical, she's different, in many ways, many ways better than I am. And especially when it comes to those types of things. And she inspires me, because not only is she having to deal and pick up the extra responsibilities that I've asked her and placed on her shoulders without asking her at times to do, I've also had to step away from things I normally would be doing. And I do that because I believe in the greater good. No ifs, ands, or buts about that in my mind. But I do that because that's the man that she's always known and married. We've been married over 21 years, and since I was 24, it looked quite a bit different then. But and she looks quite a bit better than, well, always looked good, but amazingly, you know, those of you that know her know. So that being said, though, it's hard because that aspect of who inspires me also, you know, lends itself to what my wife has had to do and in that time frame, which is not only, like I said, take on shoulder a lot more responsibility, but she's started at that time her master's in engineering class, and she'll be finished with that in July. And I mention that because if you could imagine having 3 little ones, working full time, dealing with my stuff, and getting in her own work, getting her master's in engineering, it's the reason why I say she inspires me, right? Because I could just say it, but now I've substantiated the reasons why. The other 3 are my little ones, and they definitely inspire me. And so on that note, you know, I know a few of you, you know, who hopefully, if you didn't want to hear anything personal, you probably turned off by now. So you could probably do it because I'm done talking about the HOA. The other ones are my three littles. They're all awesome. They're all great. But, you know, magnificently enough, the one thing that has made me very proud of the last couple months is, you know, my daughters and my sons and we've all done jiu-jitsu, and there's a really great place, Conejo Valley Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, over there by, I think, Twisted Oak Tavern. And it's a great place. My kids, they love it there. I love it there. I walk in and it feels a lot like whatever burdens I once had are completely gone, because nobody there knows what I'm going through, right? And I don't necessarily have to even worry about it or talk to anybody about it. But my daughter did tournament about a month or 2 ago, and she took 2nd place in her first tournament. It was awesome. And then we stepped up to an even more difficult tournament, and she got 1st place, gold medal, in a weight class 14 pounds heavier than hers, because there wasn't anybody in her class for weight. And then her first ever no-gi tournament, she got another gold medal. So she got double gold medal, which is the best you could do in a tournament with 2 gi and no-gi competitions and fights. And to know her is to understand what a special girl she is, because one, she is extremely intelligent, very socially adept and smart. And those of you who are watching this, many of you tell me that all the time. And she's very empathetic, very, very, very sweet. Sometimes too sweet. But she's who she is. But to see her in such a difficult position at times, to watch your kid with somebody's arms wrapped around their throat, potentially trying to choke them out, and kids who have, you know, their shoulder and arms and elbows put in positions, you know, that are painful. It's difficult for any parent, especially if you're not used to it, watching your child go through that. But to see her in some of those positions and then turn it around and win both matches by submission is a incredible feeling. 1, because she's my only daughter. 2, because those 2 girls that she's running with or fighting with at that moment, when they finish and you see, you know, those girls are crying because it's understandable. It's such an intimate thing. They put their life into it. You can't help as a parent to feel for their kids, because, you know, it's going to be, you know, my kid one day, right? So not everybody gets to win through life all the time, and nor should you want to, because you'll learn a lot more from your losses. That being said, when she won that the admiration and love that I had for those little girls and the ones that really put their heart out there, and the boys that I saw out there doing the same thing, and then to watch the adults do it, really, I admire that in people. You know, it's been far easier for many of the adults who are older than me, and some, yeah, you know, still in their 30s and 50s, and they're out there fighting other adults. The great thing is, unlike baseball, soccer, come to one of these tournaments, and I'll take anybody who wants to come, and find me one parent who taunts or talks shit about another kid. It'll never happen. And the reason why is because that's what I love about jiu-jitsu. Is it's about respect, it's about a warrior spirit, it's about love, and it's about competition. It's about making each other better. And the next day, my daughter had that tournament, and the girl she beat the day before, you know, they met kind of at weigh-ins, and they were in different weight groups that day, because my daughter had people in her regular weight class, which was a lighter weight class, and it was awesome. I could care less about the medals in the end, because what I saw was her and this girl who was gutting me because she was, you know, crying and she had lost, and you hate to see that. They were chatting it up, stretching together, and this girl had like 3 or 4 teammates with her. And so I saw her kind of introduce my daughter to them, and they live up in Bakersfield, and it was a great thing to watch. It reminded me of what sports used to be like, and it also reminded me of what growing up was like for me. It was almost exactly that. Listen, we could get into a fight, but there was no option but to pretty much hug it out afterwards. That was my neighbor. Somewhere watching my daughter go through this popped into my mind that very thing. And it'll never be like that here. Never. At least not for some. But I can assure you, those that live around here that I know, at least on Old Salt, and I know most of the people are here on the street, there is a certain amount of respect and we have for each other. We look out for each other. At least I know I do. I feel like everyone does the same for me. And it starts there. And the reason why I mentioned the story and, you know, the admiration is not only because, you know, that's what will inspire me to become better, but it will inspire others to become better. Yes, I'm fully aware of those that may mock what I'm saying and all that. I don't care. Please, I mean, I don't even bring it up to me. The point is that the people that actually will listen to this and understand it for what it is will always be the reason why. And therein lies the answer to the question I think a lot of people have asked me of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I truly believe that part of that, quote, suffering is for those that I love and care about. So if you take that and from this video, great. But I'm pretty much done. I appreciate you guys listening, and I'll keep you guys informed as I hear more regarding the situation. So still waiting on the financials from Lorden, I guess. But if I don't get them soon, I'll give you my financials, and I think you'll be pretty happy. All right. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate your time, and hopefully get a chance to see you soon.